Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today we're taking a look at never seen before text conversations which are summarised by me as a means of respect to other people's privacy when it comes to Kaden Pressy in contact with a member of the general public inquiring about answers to questions and so on in relation to October 2nd onwards 2023. We've done part one already on my channel, and that was mainly to do with the theme of Travis Monson, Colton Newton at the party, when they were there, when they returned back. Saturday being the main theme, Sunday not returning back. Then adding on separate video with Travis Monson and a never seen before convo where he said, I wasn't there Sunday onwards, I was only there Saturday, tying in line consistent with Kaden Pressy in the early days. Do we still have that level of consistency though in today's video notes? As said, this all dates back to October onwards of 2023. Very fresh, very recent, much closer to the case and death of Noah compared to 2024 onwards when Kaden was more vocal publicly and those interviews as well. How greatly does it differ? Well, some of the details that I share with you today may shock you in different ways, whether that be timelines or if it be what he would have done and causes of action, taken steps. So don't go anywhere. Make sure to stick around, and welcome to those that are present during the live premiere. Share your live thoughts and reactions in the chat box on the right hand side of the screen. And if you've got any additional comments, questions, whether you agree or disagree, you want to give a theory, an idea, be sure to leave it all below under the video in the comment section. And if you want to support this channel, you will find the links to do so, like PayPal and channel membership, below pinned as the comments. And for the full playlist and coverage on this case and beyond, and if you've missed out on any of my recent videos, don't worry, you'll be able to find it all top right corner where the eye symbol is. Click up there with the full playlist. The order of how I do things today is kind of starting off from where I left off from, but I've broken it down into little categories of details and pieces of interest so it's not too overwhelming for people, okay? Today is a little bit more of a mishmash of stuff, but it's in the order of how the text conversations followed, right? With the exception of the Travis Monson photo here or the Pepe one there, that was just added in to gel with the first video that I did. So part two today. So in terms of how the conversation continued on, Kaden Pressy responded back to a question in regard to the timing of when Georgia, Kaden's cousin, left the party. Kaden said in October of 2023, Kaden referenced Georgia left at 11 p.m. That's what he thinks. That's what he was thinking at the time. So he didn't know for certain as a fact. Let's just make that clear. Language wording of uncertainty. But even when you're uncertain, there's a big difference between leaving the party 11 p.m. Sunday night and then actually leaving Monday morning around 2 a.m. Bit of a time difference in between, isn't there? Of a few hours passing by. Because in recent time and on and off, we have heard from others, and even by Breely, Georgia's best friend, Breely's sisters, that they got there and left around 2 in the morning, or just a little bit before 2 in the morning. Kaden Pressy is saying Georgia left at around 11 p.m. Sunday night. So you're telling me Georgia showed up at 10:30 p.m. Sunday night and then left by 11. That makes no sense because it was 12:48 in the morning when Kaden Pressy took the photo of Georgia outside of the party house drunk. And it was something like 1:40 maybe in the morning when the tracker app service showed Georgia still at the party and Kaden too, but separated. So for Kaden to say, I think she left at 11, that is not true whatsoever because hard evidence shows she was there past that time into Monday morning. Now, yes, it was back then when Kaden thought it was that time, not that he knew of it. But it shows how off he is with time. It can happen, of course, but then you've got to ask yourself, what else could he be off on when it comes to timing? What he thinks compares to what he knows of. So it's worth taking that into mind with the Georgia situation. Another point mentioned roughly by Kaden, investigators haven't talked to me, which I'm quite surprised about, as in back then, and that the phone was not taken in. Is that consistent with what we've heard of since? Kind of, as in Kaden having to do the pushing, supposedly, to be the catalyst. And look, in a situation with Kaden, if it's all true, even if you were asleep and you're not a person of interest and the police don't see you worthy of being interviewed or followed upon, you're still kind of tied up within the case. You want to tie up loose ends. You want to clear your name to be able to move on and not feel held back, just to get out of the way, out of your mind. It might work differently for others, but this is the thing in life. Sometimes you got no choice but to be the catalyst because other people can't be asked to get the job done. Other people don't bother stepping up. So if Kaden Pressy had to try and claw and scratch his way, even if he didn't want to, or maybe felt a bit uncomfortable, tried, may have succeeded, but is there any conflicts, discrepancies with that particular material? We'll see if it differs later on in the convos or in a future video, just to see if there's any discrepancies. Of course, whilst we go through it bit by bit, if you know already, you can leave your comments below us for the discrepancies of when Kaden reached out compared to when he said he reached out along that lines. The point about his phone not taken in at the time, and how does that link to 2025, some months ago? Well, Kaden said the same thing. Police never took my phone in the first place. Yet Kaden's mum, Alicia, said that the police took his phone in. So what does that mean? Does that mean that one's telling the truth, the other person's lying? Does it mean one person's telling the truth, the other person's telling the truth based on their truth and what they know of, but they don't know the full context? Could it be some weird situation where somehow Kaden's mom got a hold of Kaden's phone unknown to Kaden, then it was taken in by police, and then by the time Kaden realised, the phone was returned back to him, so he never knew it was gone? Far-fetched, but I'm just trying to understand it from alternative perspectives to try and get that concept of both people are right in what they say based on what they know, but one has more context than the other. One may have gone behind the back of the other, but it's not guaranteed that. So some conversations back and forth about, oh, have you reached out? Can you reach out? What should you do? And Kaden inquiring about that. Kaden Pressy not sure how to reach out. You know, if it's your first time and the age you are, that's understandable. Response given as in Zach's email and some centre phone number to be able to contact people, to be able to pass information on if there is anything, if they can help, as in Kaden wanting to help and just to move forward, which is understandable. Kaden Pressy did say, and this moves on to something different, but it's a part of the same conversation. It's a different side to Kaden, how you get to learn about him, as like with other party goers. Kaden said, I deal with pain differently. I don't really let it affect me, the pain. It's better when I'm around other people, making them happy and laugh makes me not think of the bad stuff. So that's understandable. Just that what Kaden said there kind of links to supposedly the same day as Noah's death, when at what time exactly? 11, roughly close to 11 in the morning, Kaden Pressy and his Snapchat post of being at the Clear Creek, I think that's what it's called, lake, meeting up with JJ Bumpaz on the same day as a friend, hanging out together to unwind as a distraction, to talk about it and other stuff too. Whether Kaden had gone home before that or skipped home onto the lake to meet JJ, who knows? That's supposedly what happened. And with Kaden saying it helps him to deal with pain, to deal with hurt and damage and bad stuff, yeah, as a distraction, hanging out with someone that you know or close to in any way. You could argue and say, well, why did Kaden leave the party house and leave familiar faces? If you like being around people more than one, like a group, why not stick all together at a time of sadness and it being rough and raw? Hang out all together to look after one another, to help each other. Unless Kaden thought it was too raw and sensitive to be too close to the area, needed to get away, a breather, to be able to breathe, to be able to relax, unwind in some way. Kaden did say he was told by Renee Millan to leave the party house, but Renee Millan had said in her own statements, never told Kaden to leave. So who knows what the deal is there. And whether Kaden wanted to leave or not, told to leave or not, was the same applied to Isaac, Mikey, Brylan, or did they just leave with Kaden because they had no other choice, because that's the only service of taxi driving that they could rely on if they didn't have their own vehicles at the party? Because nobody else would give them a ride besides Kaden, I wonder. But just in general, Kaden dealing with pain differently, trying not to let it really affect him, but not everybody can be like that in situations and events. Some people can do everything and anything and distractions to pass time, to fill in the blanks, to fill in the voids, but that mind may never stop thinking, or if you overthink, or it's in the back of your mind, whether it's a big event, small event, you can keep busy. It might still not be good enough. For someone like Kaden, who may have people, who may hang around others, who may help others, and it feels good, or a bit of a distraction, in other situations, not everybody even has that. There are people out there at times where bad things happen to them, multiple over time, hardly anything good happens, but at the same time, whilst they may lose a lot, they've not got much to gain either, not much to share, not much to hang out with, nowhere to go, no real true escape, no real way of passing time, no way of connecting to someone or some people, because that one has no one. So there's different aspects and variations, just like how people react differently to different types and varying forms of pain. Not everybody can have the same access or the same encounters after that point in how they may deal or cope. Other people opposite to Kaden may go through such a great level of pain or suffering caused by someone or some people, whether that be caused directly, indirectly, planned or not, to the point where that individual hurts so badly that they've got to resort to being by themselves, alone and isolated, because it's the only means of maintaining a level of control and stability in their own life, because they can't rely on others, or that the presence of others can just cause too much pain, hurt, whether that be a memory flicker, or if it be just down to conditioning of the mind, trying to establish a true constant in life, something that you can take control of, which is yourself and being by yourself. But at times it can lean to going against your true self, as in if you do prefer being around others or someone, but you've got to go against what you desire most just to be able to protect yourself because the pain is too bad, then you know things are really serious. So just like with the case and the people and any damage caused with time, 2 months of suffering could take 4 to 8 months of recovery and healing, and so on. It applies differently for each individual. And on top of it, if any of the people have suffered to some extent, if they already have issues in other ways, it could stack, pile, and intensify. Just like with the situation with Mikey Lair, who before Noah's death already had PTSD. So on top of Noah's death, whether that be a trigger of the PTSD or additional stuff, could have led to more, pain and more concern, worry and uncertainty and instability. So it happens to many different people. Justin Roy may like to say there's only one victim and that's Noah, but I think it's led to collateral damage, a knock-on chain effect, with time a domino effect more so. Let me know if you agree down below or not. Whether Kaden Pressy is accurate in what he says or very inconsistent, maybe untruthful at times if people want to put it that way. Does Kaden Pressy deserve to suffer? No. With Jack Newton, as inconsistent as he has been at some point, and unusually mentioning things in parts in true crime which he's never mentioned before that, as much as that can stand out in conflict with other things and cause confusion, does Jack Newton deserve to be attacked in certain ways? No. And even people that may be tied and associated and linked up within the case in dodgy, dark ways, do they deserve to be attacked? You can say yes, but practically no, because if you do attack, if you do abuse, if you do scare off or intimidate, you push people away, they go underground, you can't reach them anymore, you can't trace or track them, you don't know where they are, what they're doing or what they're thinking, makes it harder for you to understand, makes the case harder to solve. Sometimes you've got to work with the devil. There's no other way around it. So, besides that, other points mentioned by Kaden Pressy, he hopes that everyone does get better, those that have been impacted by the tragedy. So it's just, just a level of concern and positivity towards Kaden, as in who he acknowledges. Kaden also mentioned there, in response to the member of the general public, that if you have any other questions, you know how to reach me. It's an interesting contrast that, considering that Kaden Pressy, with time passing on, past 2023, in 2024 onwards, when people have had questions, important things to inquire about, from Mikey Lair's Snapchat post, which goes against Kaden's claim of Mikey being with him at the highway, such as 527, and some of the details along the way too, for clarification, for understanding, and Kaden hasn't given an answer, and people have asked multiple times, and some people have been more patient than others, still not yielded a clear answer. Kaden can call people out and say, y'all be tweaking and y'all this and y'all that, but things could have been reduced, tension could have been lessened if there was better communication. And that doesn't just apply in a case, it can apply anywhere in life. For as long as there is context and communication, the suffering will be lessened, reduced, the confusion will be reduced, the care will be increased, the patience will be strengthened, and so on. But not many humans take that on board. A lot of humans may talk, but not clear enough, not deep enough, and not explained enough, but still expect the other person to understand or know. And that's kind of like how it's played out in this case. You're expected to know this and that and believe in it just through some words. It's just not enough. Better communication. If it means that much, step up. It's not that difficult. If it means that much, if you've got that desire, if you've got that hunger, extend the words. Try. You can't have it both ways. You can't expect someone to know about you if you've not explained you to them. In regard to some stuff, what can be controlled, right? Within reason too, because there will always be exceptions, but it's just the way humans are. And I have extensive experience with coming across dysfunctional humans that have made it significantly, increasingly hard for me to try and understand, okay? Like a mind game of mazes and a minefield. Ridiculous, but it is what it is. That's my reality in the past with time. Besides that, the case is similar, so I can understand it to an extent, right? The other point mentioned, just to refer back to about, if you've got any questions, you know how to reach me. So back in 2023, Kaden seemed quite open to answering questions and hungry to help and assist. Yet ever since, Kaden does not want to answer questions. And instead of saying, no, I'm not going to answer it, or I can't talk about that, he just completely blanks it. Nothing worse than when people completely blank something or ignore it, because it's, you could say it's rude, but it also comes across as if, are they hiding something or not? Kind of like how a person could be very vague with their words. Yeah, I'm busy. Yeah. But what exactly? Yeah, I'm this. Yeah, I'm that. I'm just doing that. But what? Context. Meaning. What does it mean? Is it code word for you doing other stuff? Is it code word for you don't want to talk about it? Is it code word for legally it's not possible to mention, right? You can interpret it in many different ways. You wouldn't have to if the opponent, the other person, was willing and put the time in to explain. But how many people actually do that? And the only reason why I can speak the way I do is because from day one, I've done nothing but explain, okay? from case to mystery to just me, myself. I've outlined it as clear as possible. I've used almost every word possible and add-on point to make it as clear as possible, the situation, the scenario, and beyond, right? I've gone above and beyond when it comes to explaining and giving context. And still, at times for some people, it's not enough. Or maybe at times for others, it's a bit too complex. But at least I try. Not everybody else does, though. And that's what can be frustrating. But besides that, moving on, the next mention by Kaden, that I called investigators. They said that they'd call me back, but they didn't. And no new messages since at the time. So was there not any urgency from investigators or LE? How many times did Kaden truly have to reach out? I think at one point Kaden said he was pushing and pushing for nearly 2 months just to get a response, and maybe that was from Zachary Wright or a previous one, Anthony Linares, one or the other. How true is it then? How hard did Kaden really push? Should he really have to? I mean, my question is, besides Kaden having to push and try and claw and scratch his way to get an answer or an interview with police, what did the likes of Mikey Lair, Brylan Sweat, Isaac Rojas do? Because technically they would be in the same boat as Kaden supposedly, as in asleep or resting at the time of when Kaden was, and at the time of when Kaden had left the house at supposedly 7 in the morning, they tagged along with Kaden for a ride home. So if they're in the same boat as Kaden, yet Kaden's had all these difficulties and troubles, what the hell happened to Brylan, Mikey and Isaac? How did they deal with it then? How did it differ to Kaden? Because they've not come up as much, they've not been attacked as much, they've not been critiqued as much. Granted, they've not been public enough as Kaden, there's that. But has it been troublesome for them as much as it has been for Kaden? Or is it a situation where Kaden isn't just the only odd one out when it comes to his timeline, but also in how he's supposedly treated by police compared to how everybody else is treated more cooperatively, coherently? What's the real deal? Why would Kaden be the odd one out? Does he deserve to be? If he's just a party goer like anybody else? Has it been exaggerated in some way with words and timing? Let me know what you think below. Now, besides that, some of the questions about what vehicles were present, and it may have tied on a bit of the reference to maybe Brylan, Isaac or Mikey, or Travis Monson, Colton Newton, and like how Kaden had responded, and we covered it in the previous video. Kaden heard about them pulling up but didn't see what vehicle they were in or came out of, so that's unknown of. But someone asked, was there a Challenger at the party? Was there was it a Mustang or something else? But Kaden did respond with, there was a grey Challenger at the party. A Challenger car. Now, vehicle. I don't remember seeing a grey Challenger. I'm not too sure if it was in the party footage in the background or if it be parts further down the dirt road, more east. You let me know if you saw any footage of a grey Challenger. Okay. Next mention by Kaden, little points, of course, is that there was an argument with Ashley. And that was mentioned a few times, the name Ashley. Don't worry, it's all under control. Kaden did actually explain who he was referring to by that name. Ashley, Kaden meant to say Avery. Avery Combs, also known as Avery Howard, the party birthday girl host. Don't know why Kaden called her Ashley. Random. But we'll call them Avery because that's their real name. So you're familiar with. An argument with Avery and Noah. Well, it's going to be the bedroom debacle, isn't it? Noah wants to sleep in the girl's bed. Avery says no, partially because she doesn't want to be like a third wheel or used because of the Logan Jernigan situation, supposedly. Not wanting to feel used, that's understandable. Noah, frustrated, calls her a fat beep. Bit tense. Then Noah walks away. Yeah, there's been theories and ideas before that, as in, well, if Noah has disrespected her, disrespected the party host in front of other people, probably going to feel a little bit embarrassed, humiliated, and frustrated. We have heard it worded in the community, can't remember who by them, that after Noah did that and walked away, Avery chased after Noah. Now, how much distance was covered? If it was long distance, and this is not to sound rude, that Noah Presgrove would probably cover more distance, getting away and out running the likes of Avery down to fitness, and more so because Noah Presgrove was into cross-country running, better stamina levels, better pace, better distance. I mean, when applied to me myself, I might have a bit of an explosive sprint, but long distance, jogging, running around a park or whatever, if in competition or in line with another person, they could possibly run rings around me and cover more laps than myself. But short distance, that explosiveness, I'll definitely catch up. But is there a game of cat and mouse here? Is there really a race, a sprint, or is it a marathon? I guess as in the case in the learning, it's more of a marathon, that's stamina and trying to keep up and learn. But the timing itself, when it all unfolded and went down as Noah is distancing himself to get away from the party to cool off, was there a magnetizing psychological effect in which it drew people out to him, to follow him? If there was anything to squash, anything to follow up on, any unfinished business, any motives like that, who knows? We don't have cameras, we don't have footage to show that of people following Noah shortly afterwards. If we did, would have been interesting, of course. So keep it like that for now. Not too much has changed there. The next point mentioned, was you there all the days at the party? So for as long as the party was going on for, the question was, were you there on all of those days? 4-day party, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Kaden Pressy's response was, yes, ma'am, and then said the 2 days that it went on for. A 2-day party. The party only went on for 2 days. Maybe Kaden words it because he classifies Sunday night, Monday morning as the same thing because of when they really went to sleep, as in Monday morning, which they treated as Sunday night. So it classified as just Sunday, when literally, or properly, it's not the case. You could say 2 days. Because originally Kaden had said he wasn't there Friday, but in the June 2024 interview, Kaden did say he was there Friday, which is a bit weird. But all the other times, Kaden had said he was there Saturday onwards. Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning. Yet Kaden says he was only there for 2 days. But even though his language is poor, I do understand what he means. He was there Saturday and he was there Sunday/Monday. He went to sleep more so Monday morning for it to still be considered as Sunday night, if that makes sense in terms of people's minds. But retrospectively, realistically, Kaden was there for 3 days, or 2.5 days, if you want to put it like that. Because it wasn't for the full day on Monday, was it? He supposedly left at 7 in the morning or a little bit onwards. But the party was 4 days, Kaden was there for at least 3 days. But in the police interview of 2024, Kaden did say he did arrive on the Friday, which would mean 4 days. So there is some discrepancies there. Kaden added on just for a little bit of clarification, saying, I was just there the night of Noah's passing and also the day before that. So, yeah. We do have a few more notes, which I'll just switch on to now. And this particular part, there's like 1 or 2 which gets rather shocking. So make sure to listen in for this and I'll break it down a little bit by bit. So, first one mentioned, Kaden Pressy said, everyone. And I guess when Kaden means everyone, he means party goers. But everyone as in on what day, when, and who exactly, unknown. But I thought I'd ask that question. Kaden said, everyone said that Noah Presgrove walked off at 3:15 in the morning, Monday. Kaden also said, I fell asleep at like 11:30 p.m. What? Fell asleep at 11:30 p.m. If that's really the case, what about that reference back to when Georgia left? Oh, Georgia left, I think, at 11 p.m. Is that so? Fell asleep 30 minutes later. Does it conflict with what we've seen elsewhere by Alicia speaking on behalf of Kaden? I think it might have been. Or so. when it mentioned about Kaden was outside front patio area, Georgia was present, Kaden was kind of waiting until she left, was picked up, whatever. Then Kaden went back inside. But if that was the case, and that was in the morning time of Monday, for Kaden to go asleep at 11:30, when did he next wake up? 2:42? He wouldn't have seen, he wouldn't have known, he wouldn't have been present for Georgia to leave or been at the front patio area around that given time if he was asleep. So it's a bit weird, that. And if he went to sleep at 11:30 Sunday night, then how come at 1:05 in the morning Kaden was awake and was on the front patio, as he documented from his own point of view of Brylan slapping Noah then? Take in mind this is early on in the case, but you would think early on in the case, details, personal details of what you've done, where you've been, and the time would be a lot more clearer, crystal, and accurate compared to time passing by when the trauma, the memories and things get squashed and repressed and put elsewhere. Maybe it differs from certain memory recollections to others, but you would have hoped that early on in the case what's said is the truth, what's said down the line later may not be as accurate. Now, granted, for Kaden to say that he thinks that Georgia left at 11 doesn't mean to say he knows. He may have thought it was 11, but it was actually an hour or two later, if not longer, and so on. But in terms of Kaden saying, I fell asleep at like 11:30, to use the word like in a sentence can sometimes highlight lacking confidence and certainty in what you say or believe in. I'm like this, I'm like that, this like happened at this time. Sometimes it can be a bad habit and not everybody can help it, that's understandable. But with a case, with a timeline, and you've got to try and be serious and focused, to use the word like means what you say isn't said with absolute confidence. So when you say you fell asleep at 11:30, like at 11:30, either you did sleep at 11:30 or you didn't, one or the other. Kaden Pressy's first statement on Facebook in 2024 at some point said he went to sleep at 3 in the morning. In Partisan True Crime, he said he went back to sleep at 3 in the morning. That's what Kaden meant. But the difference in going to sleep and going back to sleep is drastically different. Back to sleep implies that you were once asleep, woken up and trying to get back. Going to sleep means you're going to sleep for the first time. So you miss out a word or two, it leads to a completely different understanding of the situation. That's why it's very important, this, and why there was confusion in the past. And this old information, which has come about more so now, is confusing. Because even before talking about Kaden going to sleep, for Kaden to say everyone said Noah walked off at 3:15 in the morning, how true is that? Let's just dial it back to when Kaden Pressy was woken up as a fact by a phone call, which is backed up by, let's just call log 242. And if it was 3 in the morning when he went back to sleep, between 2:42 to 3 in the morning, Kaden Pressy said he saw Noah Presgrove, Jack Newton and Jasmine Milan at a beer pong table playing about. Okay. At the latest, 3 in the morning. 15 minutes later, that's when Noah walked off. If that's really the case, hold with me. If 3:15 is when Noah walked off, that would mean everything would have had to have happened before 3:15, meaning just before 3:15, the bedroom debacle, then just before that, probably the ramen noodles, then just before that, the tea bagging, then just before that, the shower, then just before that, the side-by-side rollover. That's a lot of events crammed into a small space of time, and before 3:15 as well, that will incorporate the time of when Kaden was awake, and yet Kaden didn't see anything. How unusual. Now, I can't remember what screenshots they were from, Kaden's mouth or Alicia's, but I do remember some coverage, maybe speaking on behalf of Kaden, correct me if I'm wrong, where Kaden supposedly saw Noah being escorted by the girls to the shower, not seeing the shower, but the process following up to it, being escorted into the bathroom. What's that all about, right? How true is it? Kaden hasn't acknowledged that in any of the interviews, but I believe it might have been Alicia speaking on behalf of him. We could possibly do a smaller video, a focused one at a future point. But if anyone in chat remembers what I'm getting at there, be sure to let me know down below. All I'm saying is, if, and it appears to be the case, 2:42, Kaden is awake. What does he see? Noah. Okay. 2:42 to 3:15. It's only a small span of time, a small window for events to take place. And out of that timing, surely Kaden would have seen at least one event take place which involved Noah. Teabagging, ramen noodles, some kind of noise, maybe some kind of commotion. Granted, ever since, it's been mentioned that it was 3:30 when Noah walked away, not 3:15. It's the first time I've heard of this myself. What would be better though, 3:15 or 3:30 as when Noah supposedly walked off? Well, 3:15 more problematic because it bunches everything closer together, and you would expect someone to have seen or heard something if it's around a time when they were awake and conscious, right? 3:30 can give Kaden the benefit of the doubt, because if Kaden had gone to sleep at 3 in the morning and then 30 minutes later, towards the end, that's when Noah walked away, Kaden may have been already in a sleep, deep sleep by then, and wouldn't have seen or heard much. Just as a possibility, right? But we've not seen hard evidence of the time of when Noah walked away. Not seen any hard evidence. It's just what people have said based on a kind of consensus, and that is all. Is that good enough? No. But if that's all you've got to work with, something is better than nothing, right? So, that's a problem, and it's a discrepancy. Everyone said, in the words of Kaden, based on what he's heard, that Noah walked away at 3:15, and ever since we've heard it as 3:30. 3:15, 3:30, 15-minute time difference. That's kind of interesting. Mention of, I fell asleep at like 11:30 p.m, falling asleep for the first time. Well, what we heard in Parts in True Crime, Kaden had said he went to sleep at 2 in the morning, and not before that. So, what's going on there? And there is proof and evidence to show that Kaden was awake Monday morning in the early hours from 12:48 a.m, 00:48, when Georgia's drunk sick, and Kaden documents it and passes it on to Alicia. Then 1:05 in the morning when Kaden's on the front porch patio, recording Brian slapping Noah, and onwards. Then 2 going to sleep. So, discrepancies there, but we have seen hard evidence to dispel the 11:30 time as Kaden has given. Weird how Kaden would mention it though, like that, when he has the material to know of when he was awake and when he wasn't. Anyway, Kaden Pressy did say, in a response to a person's comment about the situation of Noah walking away, that I wouldn't have even let him walk off in the first place. That's quite shocking and bold, that point mentioned, to say it that way. I wouldn't have even let him walk off in the first place. What, if you had known what was going to happen? Or regardless of what was to happen, that what, if Kaden Pressy was awake and Noah walked away, Kaden wouldn't allow it? Retrospectively, you can understand that to save Noah. But in the moment, would Kaden have gone out of his way to follow Noah to make sure he's okay, to bring him back to the party, to resist him leaving? Because I find it hard to believe, and that's not being rude. That's just because Kaden Pressy had said in an interview or some text conversation, as we've all witnessed, Kaden Pressy said it was normal for Noah to walk away from any party when he was drunk. When things may have got heated or frustrating, Noah would take himself out of the equation to cool off, to distance himself, so he didn't put a dampener on anybody, and he could return back later calmer and cooler, so it didn't ruin the party or the atmosphere. A selfless act. And that Noah, when doing that often, which Kaden witnessed often, when present and when drunk, Noah would be gone for like 30 minutes and then return back. So it was such a normal thing for Noah to get maybe a bit frustrated, to be drunk, to walk away, to cool off, that it was so normal because Kaden Pressy was there to witness it all the other times. So why this time does Kaden say that I wouldn't have even let him walk off in the first place when you let him walk off all the other times before that? So just based off the language and wording, although the context is lacking, I think Kaden just basically means, given what happened to Noah, if I knew of that at the time, I wouldn't have let him walk off. But the other way of interpreting it would be the ride home, being denied a ride home by different people. If Kaden was able to, he would have, and it eats him up, as quoted once before. It just depends how you look at it and how you interpret it, right? Retrospectively, I understand what Kaden's getting at. But in the moment, would you have done anything different when all the other times before that, you didn't, because it was normal for Noah to walk away? Why would it be any different this final time in the moment when, you're not going to expect? So just let me know what you think, whether you agree or not, if you think I'm a bit too harsh there. Kaden Pressy said about everyone said he was fine, as in Noah, before he had left. Showered, then put on new clothes. And then Kaden also mentioned, once again, consistent with Noah was found with no shoes, no socks, no top, just wearing black shorts. That might be true to what Kaden saw in his own experience, but not to other people's. But Kaden, in a way, has contradicted himself in a small way. To say that Noah was wearing black shorts at the highway, and for Kaden also to say that Noah Presgrove had a shower and then put on new clothes, well, that's supposedly what did happen. Had a shower, put on new shorts, but Noah didn't have any others, so he borrowed Jack's, which were white. So it's kind of consistent now with what's been said by others, partygoers, and then Kaden acknowledging that, yes, Noah put on new clothes. If Noah only had one pair of black shorts present for Kaden to say, and if he knew that Noah put on new clothes, would mean, why would you say he was wearing black shorts at the highway? Oh, based on what you saw. But would you expect Noah to be wearing the black shorts? Though, if you said earlier, he put on new clothes, which means different coloured shorts, providing Kaden knew that Noah didn't have a spare backup pair of black shorts. There's a condition to that, of course. That's why I wanted to make it clear. But depending on how you read it, you could say there's a bit of a contradiction there in some way. Next point mentioned by Kaden Pressy. There was a semi-truck and a government-like road worker vehicle. Bit of a tongue twister that. We've heard of semi-truck. I'm guessing that government-like road worker vehicle is basically a service truck, which I think Kaden believed had a crane on it, but it didn't, at least Cash Allsups at a later time. There have been some kind of inconsistencies, discrepancies with, a semi-truck and a service truck there earlier on, before the Ford F-150 pickup of Tyler Hardy's and the semi-truck of Tyler H arrived at 5:43 onwards. Before that time, you had a service truck and another semi of different people, supposedly. Now, if there was at least a semi-truck present at 6 in the morning onwards and a service truck 6 in the morning onwards, such as Cash Allsups, maybe Kaden saw that at a later time and not earlier. And Kaden didn't identify the other vehicles that were there too. But surely you would be able to identify them based on the size and if you're that close in the first place. So I'm just trying to work it out from alternative ways and perspectives, right? The other mention was about the semi-truck and the government vehicle that was present there covering him up. Now, people may not jump on that, but people certainly from the Army page jumped on Anthony Linares with that call with Kaden when they said, oh, we'll cover it up. Meant to say, we'll cover that. We'll talk about it. We'll continue the discussions in a face-to-face meeting, not truly cover up as in corrupt, just a slip of the tongue. It can happen. Light joke, laugh made. No big deal. Yet how Kaden worded it in this particular convo of there's a semi, a government-like vehicle, and they were there covering him up. I know what that can mean, as in putting a towel, a sheeting over Noah's body out of respect and to preserve it, so no other people see it nearby. Yeah, covering up the body. But it's vaguely worded, and I'm just wondering if anyone has read those convos in the past and interpreted it as the semi-truck, the Wilcoxon truck, it's been done to cover it all up. I've solved the case, as Justin Roy once quoted. I don't know if there's a direct influence or not, but if there is, retrospectively, it just goes to show that when I read through this and how I pick up and interpret it, I also interpret it in the ways of how it can be taken out of context and the damage that's already been done by it, right? You let me know if there's a possible link there. But it's interesting for Kaden to say that the semi and the government vehicle were there covering him up when Kaden said he got there at 5:21, was told to leave at 5:30. Close to 5:30, Kaden was either going back to his vehicle to get a towel, going back to Noah's body, and about to cover, and then the service truck guy in a high-vis jacket came along and swore at Kaden, was a bit confrontational, and said, "You need to go." Kaden said he respects his elders, followed with the orders, and left. Left with the towel, who knows? But Kaden said he was the one to initiate covering Noah's body, or at least attempting. But how Kaden words it here is as if people were doing it before him. Unless Kaden meant they took over once Kaden was about to leave, but it wasn't worded quite like that. So you interpret it however you want. Next point made about the semi-truck finding Noah first, and then Jack Newton, and then the rest, Kaden and the lot. But it's interesting how Kaden says it was the semi-truck to find Noah first. What about that government-like road worker vehicle? How come Kaden didn't mention them to see Noah's body first? Because in the Partners in True Crime interview, yeah, Kaden had said when he got there, Jack was there, or at least returned back. But before that, you also had the semi-truck and the possible service truck, government-like road vehicle. But no mention or context given on, was it the service truck, government vehicle? Was it the semi-truck? Which one of the two of those vehicles came across Noah's body first? If it was the semi-truck that came across Noah's body first, well, coincidentally, at 5:43 onwards, Tyler H, not Hardy, but the other H, was in a semi-truck and was first to pass by Noah's body, but could not slow down because of a convoy behind. And then Tyler Hardy, behind that convoy, behind that vehicle truck, was able to pull over. So in the order of, in that situation at that time, 5:43 onwards, it was the semi that came across Noah's bodies first. And Kaden acknowledges it here. But Kaden's referring to like before 5:21 and 5:15 with the news of all that. Interesting. Anyway, final few points and quotes. Jack had a bad feeling, said that he drove around for a bit looking for Noah, then saw the semi and Noah, and then came back and told us. Is that so? See, at 5:30, maybe, round that, and I believe it's when Jasmine told Jack about the situation, and maybe around that time, Jack also mentioned it's no big deal, Noah's probably out somewhere or in the field, and if it gets too hot, he'll just return back, no big deal. Well then, at what point did worry or concern truly kick in? At what point then? Now, 5:53, when the text conversation came about with his father, Caleb Newton. 5:53, shortly after that, setting out, fishing trip, new meeting location at Warwicker Lake, the Ramp. Changing location last minute on the same day to meet at the Ramp and not elsewhere where his father would be. Focused on that, heading north to get there, and along the way, not far down, coming across Noah, the vehicles, etc. So at what time did Jack supposedly drive about? Because If Jack was woken up at 5:30 but laid in bed or was resting till 5:53, Jack Newton didn't really have much time to be searching for Noah, I guess. Unless things were just delayed, put on hold, and Jack put Noah first. And then if it was okay, Jack would have just gone on fishing much later. Who knows what the urgency levels were like. If Jack was cool about it earlier, as in, oh, Noah's probably fine, he'll be somewhere, he'll come back. Yeah, he didn't. As time passes by, that may be when doubts and concern creeps in and you take action. But to say that Jack was driving around for a bit, driving where? Driving down the dirt road, driving along the field, driving up and down the highway, no context given. What does it really mean? What was Jack expecting to find, as in Noah? In what condition as well? And how true is it? Or was Jack's main focus on getting up, oversleeping, overresting, being late, and wanting to go fishing, and that was all on his mind, and then came across what he saw on the highway unknown to him as a shock? Let me know what you think. Kaden added on by saying, I just got woken up at about around 5 in the morning to Jack screaming, Noah is dead. Well, that's a problem. Around 5 in the morning, uncertain, estimate. Around 5 could mean a little bit before 5, a bit after 5 or so. And yeah, Kaden, ever since, and in Parts in True Crime, said it was actually 5:15. So either he was woken up at 5 or he was woken up at 5:15. There was a clear time difference in between it. But maybe it's just more so an estimate, a rough one. But you would have thought if Kaden is confident, based on what he can remember, based on looking at his own phone, mobile device of the time that was on screen, and it's like a visual memory etched in your mind, that it would be even more crystal clear if it was much earlier on in the earlier days of the case and investigation ongoing. Yeah, in this situation, supposedly in October 2023, Kaden was like, oh, it was around 5 when I was woken up. And then in 2024, when the trauma and you start forgetting stuff, as people in the community like to say, oh, but no, now I know, I'm confident it's 5:15 and stuck with it since. It seems like some things Kaden was confident with more so in the earlier days, which are more consistent, but then in the later days became more inconsistent by changing it to different discrepancies. But then there's other stuff where Kaden wasn't as confident in the earlier days, but then later became more confident with it and changed the times. It doesn't just go one way. It's not linear. It's a bit mix and match, and I don't know if people see that as problematic or not, but you can let me know what you think. I believe that's it for most of the notes for today. The mention of Jack screaming is consistent with, I believe, what Carter Combs had said, but Jack Newton worded it as, well, when I came into the house, I gently walked in and I rested my head on a pillow and was upset, and then told the news to my girlfriend Carter. And then Avery was sat or resting on a sofa and nearby and said, what's wrong? And then Jack explained, and it was one by one, very slowly. Doesn't match up with Jack's girlfriend or Jack's best friend Kaden, how they worded it and regarded it, regardless of time. Just the actual cause of action, screaming and shouting, is different to calmly saying something happened, right? So it's weird, it is. There is still more to look at, of course, and we'll get to it bit by bit. But the importance of all this is information by Kaden Pressy in the early days. Not 2024 or 25, but 2023. Like a month on from Noah's death. So you'd hope that it would be a bit more accurate and fresh. But clearly, even if it is fresh and maybe accurate, the discrepancies widen between that and then what you hear in 2024's interviews. So hopefully it's not caused too many headaches, but I'm just relaying what I've seen. I can't show the screenshots because I'm just not able to, but what I say is based off what I've seen from what Kaden has said in those screenshots, and I've tried re-quoting it as best as I can. You don't have to believe in it, that's fine, but I'm just doing this for the awareness. If you are interested in more, I will follow up with part 3, part 4, part 5 when possible and when needed. In the meantime, feel free to hit the thumbs up, share the video, that'd be much appreciated, and check my previous videos out, which can be located top right corner where the eye symbol is. My name's Wallite Ref. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and good night for now.